Another really important piece of lab equipment is the incubator. And this basically is just some device that will keep the environment at a specific temperature, typically 37 degrees for mammalian cell culture or E. coli cell culture, or 30 degrees for yeast cell culture. And that really helps the cells grow in their optimum environment, so you get the best growth. And in most labs, this kind of looks like a big box, sort of, I guess, kind of like an oven, or like a refrigerator that holds a specific temperature. But in this case, we're going to have a temperature controller that's a little bit different. So this is the Inkbird 310 TB. There's a bunch of different models, and they have slightly different characteristics. This is probably the highest end model, since it allows you to kind of do different temperature cycling, which is one reason I got this particular model. But you can get much cheaper ones that basically just hold one specific temperature. And so you can see, if you want to set the temperature, it's pretty simple. You just hold this button, and it starts to beep, and then you can set the temperature higher or set the temperature lower. And when you're done, you basically just hold the set again, and there it is. And so the top temperature is the actual temperature that the sensor's reading. So this is the thermometer over here. And this is the set point temperature. And there's a bunch of different functions that, if you're interested, you can go into the specifics of the data sheet and figure out, but that is kind of the basic function. And then other features, so as I mentioned, this is kind of the temperature sensor. If we grab it here and hold it, you'll be able to see the temperature start to go up over time. There it goes. And then we have the output. So this is actually the piece that will cause the environment to heat or cool. So you can see, you can either plug in a cooling device here or a heating one. In my experience, you really only need a heating device. Basically, the environmental loss of heat is sufficient for the cooling. And then you have here the plug that actually goes into the wall socket to power this device. So if you have your heating device, this one I've been using for a while now. It's basically just a seedling heat mat. So it has heating elements in here. And so if you plug this in to the heating, then you leave this here, it'll start to heat up and ideally get up to your temperature. So in an actual setup, you'd probably want to cover this with some sort of insulation, so that you could keep the temperature much more constant. But that's kind of the very basic setup. You can put this in a box, styrofoam box, for example, anything like that. And for the heating element that you use, you can really use pretty much anything. And, when I first set this up, I actually just used basically an incandescent light bulb as my heating element, and that did work. It's obviously not as ideal as something like a heating mat where it's well distributed kind of heat source, but that is kind of a basic setup that you could use, for example. It's kind of interesting, temperature controllers like the Inkbird are actually developed for the home brewing sort of community, which, if you think about it, is kind of a DIY bio group as well, since you're working with yeast cell culture and trying to produce a product. So actually some good overlap there, and a lot of useful tools that you can get out of that as well.